This is a video I never thought I'd have to make, but like so many other things in life that you just thought would always be there, one day you woke up and it was gone. This is Myrtle Beach Speedway, and tomorrow night they're going to have the very last race ever out here. By the time that this video comes out, the track will likely be demolished. That's the plan. It's already been sold. There's no hope in saving it. It's pretty much gone. They're going to knock this place down, put condos out here, because this area of Myrtle Beach is actually one of the most hotly contested pieces of real estate out in South Carolina. This track originally began its life as Ranby Raceway in 1958. It was a half-mile dirt oval. It was just a normal oval. There wasn't a D shape out here yet. A lot of people confuse this track with Coastal Speedway, which hosted a few races in the mid-late 50s for the NASCAR Cup Series. Fireball Roberts and Gwen Staley won those two races, but that track was actually not here. It was out at the corner of Oak and 22nd Street, which puts it about 3 blocks off the actual beach. This track is actually way further inland. It's actually west of the Intracoastal Waterway, which basically goes all the way down the East Coast. Out here, I mean, this track just drips with history. A lot of people remember this track as a Busch Series track. It actually held Cup races in the late 50s and throughout the 60s. Ned Jarrett went out here. I believe he's the only multi-time winner out here. Ned Jarrett went out here. Bob Wellborn, he won the first race out here. So there's a lot of big names that have come through here and won races in the Convertible Series, Cup Series, and of course the Busch Series. Mark Martin won out here in 1990. Jeff Gordon raced out here in 1992 when he was with Bill Davis, driving for Ford at the time. Earnhardt Jr. had his first late model win out here, first Busch Series race out here. Jeff Green won out here the last 2 times in 2000. He won the very last race out here, which was basically en route to his just dominating championship run that year. But even beyond that, when they stopped racing out here in the top 3 divisions in 2000, this track lived on as a major draw for late model racing, and not just late model racing. K&N Series, modified, Southern modifieds, they'd all come out here. And if you were anybody who wanted to make a name for themselves in stock car racing, you pretty much had to come out here on a hot Saturday night in the middle of the summer. Track is slick, pavement's old, and you had to do battle with everybody else in America who had the exact same idea that you did. Guys like Mike Snyder, Ryan Vargas, guys who are coming up through the ranks right now, guys who already made it. Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott. Joey Logano had to come out here in the USAR series when he was like 15, 16 years old. Had to do battle with Bobby Gill, Clay Rogers, Benny Gordon, sorry. He had to go out here and try to beat those guys who were just veterans who had won everything in their division. And you know, it was kids having to battle the hardened veterans just out here every single Saturday night in every division you could think of. Some guys really like this track. Mike Snyder says he liked it. Ryan Vargas, I've spoken with him. He doesn't like it at all, but he is sad to see it go, like the rest of us. But you know, the pavement out here is old. It looks like it has more banking than it actually does. And you fire it off into the corner and there's just no grip, especially when it's hot and slick out here. And probably the biggest feature of this track is this offset D-shaped oval. It was a dirt track in the 50s. In the 70s, they paved it. They made it a dirt track again, and then in 1977, they gave it its final pave job, which gave it this offset D-shaped oval. And it's really funny watching the cars come out here because they have to make the turn. They start turning into turn 1 before they ever even get to the start-finish line. So that just makes this place even more treacherous. You know, some guys, they're firing it off into turn 1. They just have this mad dash, just, you know, tunnel vision for the finish line. They don't even think about hitting the brakes, and you'll see guys wash up into turn 1 all the time. So this place is treacherous, it's fun to watch, it's got a lot of history, and unfortunately it's going away. All right, we're standing over here at pit entrance, but this used to not be pit entrance. This place for the longest time had a split pit. Right over there is where the old pit used to be. And they changed it for the 2000 season. They started to get a few rumblings that, you know, NASCAR was trying to go to bigger and better tracks. Hickory was off the schedule. South Boston and Nashville were coming off the schedule. And so this was kind of like their last gasp to stay on the Busch Series schedule. So they only ran 1 race here with the 1 pit lane, and they basically made a wall out here. So it went all the way around. And this was the first pit box right here. And that was enough to get 43 cars in here and wrap all the way out and come out right at the entrance of turn 1. So they used this second pit over here, the split pit, for safety personnel, tow trucks, ambulance and stuff. That way they could go out onto the track as fast as possible in case there was an accident or something. And you really can't see it from here, but just beyond those trees is a subdivision. There's a bunch of houses back there. They've been there since at least the early 90s, and that might be some of the reason why they're trying to get rid of this racetrack. You know, we said at the beginning, this is one of the most hotly contested pieces of real estate in South Carolina. And of course, every Saturday night, if you live right behind those trees, you're gonna have to listen to some Saturday Night Thunder, whether you want to or not. And I'm sure there's been lots of people back there that complain that a race went past 11 p.m., past midnight. And so probably, you know, Myrtle Beach City Council didn't like that. And so when they tried to buy this place, they said, yeah, go ahead.
That about wraps up the Cliff Notes versions of the history of the track, but to hear more about what the drivers thought about Myrtle Beach Speedway, I've enlisted the help of a couple of Xfinity Series drivers who cut their teeth racing late models and Saturday night features here. Here's what up-and-comer Ryan Vargas thought of the track.
I think one of the more insane things about Myrtle Beach Speedway is it's one of those tracks where it's literally a cheese grater. I mean, I've seen photos of Darlington, how that track is super, you know, super rough, the surface is. You go to Myrtle Beach Speedway and it's worse than that, significantly worse, honestly. I had the pleasure of racing there once. I wouldn't even say racing, I'd say pacing. I went there when I was racing with Rev Racing back in 2018 with the late models. Me and my teammate Chase, we had a strategy to save tires and ended up simultaneously going a lap down. So it wasn't a good night. But Myrtle Beach Speedway, it's one of those tracks that just, as a short track racer, you know about it. You hear about it, you hear the legacy of it. You know, it's that track that Dale Jr. won at. It's the place where a lot of NASCAR stars are born. You hear about, it's one of those legacy tracks. It's ranked up there with the tracks like Hickory and Bowman Gray. When you think of, you know, East Coast short tracks, you think of Myrtle Beach Speedway. So it's definitely a tough loss to the short track racing community.
While Myrtle Beach Speedway didn't jive too well with Ryan, his fellow Xfinity Series competitor, Myatt Snyder, has a more favorable view of the track.
So to me, Myrtle Beach was one of the most fun tracks I could have ever gone to in a late model. It wasn't a difficult track per se. It was more, it required a lot of patience because, especially in like late model races like the Myrtle Beach 400, you had to be very, very patient with what you were doing. Like, you couldn't just rush the gas or try and make things happen. I mean, you could, but you would wear out your tires really quickly. And you know, this race was 200 laps, so you get to change the set of tires once. And you know, depending on how the event organizers felt that year, it would be at lap 125, lap 75. So you'd have to make your tires last a long time. But you just have to be really patient with any move that you made and how you got forward. Like, you'd have to like time out your passes so that you would be really careful. But it was that kind of track, and I thought it was a lot of fun personally. You know, I saw some drivers who thought, oh, it's just late model pack racing, it's no fun. But I thought it was a blast because you really had to manage your stuff. So really sad to see it go. Really wish it wasn't being torn down, but what can you do, I guess.
Saturday came around and we still had one last race to run. And with storms rolling in, the decision was made to move the race up from 7:30 to 3:30 and put the late models out first. By hook or by crook, the main event would go down tonight, and with 35 cars on the entry list from several different states, no one complained at all about hitting the racetrack one last time to get the race in. Local legend Sam Yarborough, no relation to Cale or Leroy, started on the pole for the 101-lap feature, but the 60-time winner at Myrtle Beach Speedway knew how to manage the race and slipped back a few rows as soon as the green flag flew. However, after a few cautions, Sam made his way to the front as another regular at the track, Will Burns, the 2017 Greenville-Pickens Speedway track champion, sliced his way through the field. Before long, the two were running nose to tail, and Will set up the veteran for a late race charge, but fate would have other plans. A late race wreck in turn 4 caused a caution, and then Mother Nature stepped in to turn the page on the speedway as rain began to fall hard on the event. Being past the halfway point at lap 72, by rule the race was declared officially over, and Sam Yarborough took the last checkered flag. Justin Milliken, whose family has raced out here for decades, was one of the drivers who wrecked out late. Just wanting to finish the final race ever held at his hometown track, he walked across the start-finish line to applause so loud it drowned out the cars around him. In the pits, his demeanor showed just how important the track was to him. Perhaps rather fittingly, Sam Yarborough, the winningest driver in the track's history, gave the track one last burnout all the way down the front straight, as the sun began to set and darker clouds moved in. Will Burns, who had waited just a bit too long to make his move, was disappointed that he couldn't get the last checkered flag for himself, but even more gut-wrenching was he'd come up just a few points short in the final track championship standings. A win would have put him just ahead of Sam. As Sam Yarborough exited his car in victory lane, it seemed nobody wanted to leave the track yet, and fans flocked onto the track to congratulate the last winner and walk the historic pavement just one last time. If you have any takeaway after watching this video, let it be this. If there's a short track in your area that you've been putting off visiting, then go ahead and pull the trigger and see a race there as soon as you safely can. You may never know when it's gone for good, and the people at Myrtle Beach had the luxury of knowing the end was coming way ahead of time. Anyway, I'm Slapshoes, thanks for watching, and until next time, y'all take it easy. If you like the music used in the intro and outro of this video, it was provided by a Japanese musician living in Kyoto named Juuichi. I had the pleasure of listening to him perform on the street while vacationing in the country last year, and his social media and Bandcamp links are in the description and the pinned comment down below.